welcome.
Due to health and safety concerns related to COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting will be conducted by video conference or telephone call. At least a quorum of the board is presiding. The subjects to be discussed have been properly posted. Would you please, at this time, Dr. Ball, present the budget for the public hearing?
Yes, ma'am. I want to call Mr. Atkins up. This is our budget for next year that we'd like to present. I want to first of all start off by thanking Mr. Atkins because he spent countless hours working on this, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have. And as soon as we get the information on the screen, we'll go ahead and we'll get started.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, members of the community. This is a public hearing for the budget for the 2021 school year. It's a requirement under the Texas Education Code that we have a hearing. We have to have the budget approved by June 30th to meet the requirements of that statute. So the objectives is to make sure that we meet board goals, that we demonstrate fiscal responsibility, and that we need to approve the budgets in the general operating fund, the child nutrition fund, and the interest and sinking fund. So again, schools are funded mainly through ADA. Our projection for the 2021 school year is about 21,350 students, and then local taxes and federal allocations, and then some grants when we were able to get those. So these are our assumptions for this budget that we're proposing. Again, the ADA of 21,350. We staffed according to the basic school model. Estimated taxable value of $11,263,000,000. We implemented some of the proposed cost savings that we looked at through the budget workshops. It includes $640,000 for remediation and tutorials from state comp funds. We have an M&O tax rate of 0.9664 and an IS tax rate of 0.3323. And we're using one-time $3.5 million of fund balance in the general fund to balance the budget. So we're looking at total revenue this year in the general operating fund of about $206 million. You can see how that's broken down there. And it's, like I said, about a 50-50 split. When we're looking at our expenditures, we're looking at about $209.8 million. Again, mainly broke down, personnel being the majority of that, 85%. So we are estimating a fund balance at the end of this fiscal year of about $64 million. And based on our projected revenues and expenditures and the use of unassigned fund balance, we're projecting a fund balance at the end of the 2021 school year of $60.5 million. Looking at the Child Nutrition Fund, again, they're looking at projecting revenue of about $15.6 million. The majority of that coming from federal reimbursement of meals. They're looking at expenditures of about $15.6 million. They're a little different model. They're more of a 60-40 split when it comes to personnel versus operations. We're predicting a fund balance at the end of this fiscal year of a little over $1 million, and using the $10,000 out of fund balance to balance their budget, we'll be looking at a fund balance at the end of the 2021 school year of right at $1 million in the Child Nutrition Fund. Interest and sinking, again, about $36.4 million in revenue, majority of that coming from local taxes. When we look at the expenditures, again, the majority of that is debt service, $38.6 million. We're projecting a fund balance in that fund at the end of this fiscal year of $26.5 million, using about $2.1 million to balance the budget this year. So at the end of the 2021 school year, we'd have about $24.3 million. And we make a payment at the 1st of August that's about $13.7 million. So when we add all the funds together, about $258.5 million in revenue. Breaks it up a little differently. Expenditures, $261 million. Again, about 70% of that is personnel. So when we look at that, we will be decreasing the general fund balance about $3.5 million, child nutrition $10,000, and interest and sinking $2.1 million. Just to look at what that is as a percent of expenditures, it's about 28% of expenditures in the general fund, about 6% of expenditures in child nutrition fund. And if we look at the total interest and sinking balance, it's about 63%, but when we take out that payment in August, it's about 27%. Maintenance operations tax of 0.9664, a little bit less than last year. This is assuming taking the fifth penny when we adopt the tax rate in August. Debt service rate of 0.3323, which is less than last year. So a total tax rate of 1.2987. And so when we look at that as what that does for a homeowner, of course the values went up this year. The taxable value went from $151,000 to $162,000. So the difference in taxes on an average taxable value home would be about $57. So when we look to the 21-22 biennium, some of the concerns are we're really pretty sure there's going to be a cut in public ed based upon the state's budget situation. Possible reduction in property values due to foreclosures, closed businesses. What's the cost of the new normal going forward? Property and liability insurance continues to increase for commercial properties. Updating and expanding technology, aging bus fleet, and aging facilities and mechanical systems. So those are some of our things that we're keeping an eye on. And with that, I'll take any comments, questions from anybody in the room.
I have a question, Mr. Atkins.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that this year, when we closed down the schools and moved to food distribution curbside, that had an impact on our revenue from the federal government because we get reimbursed for those meals. Would we expect to? I know that our fund balance for child nutrition is just something that kind of we have to keep it within a certain range. Do we feel like what we have right now could account for it a scenario where we might have to go back to doing curbside rather than serving the meals in the schools if the school had to close?
Not as we currently operate. This year, we're going to use about 1.6 million of that fund balance. They're going to go in the red about 1.6 million, and that's going to be the million left.
And we're at like just under $1 million is what we would project having in fund balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then if we're encouraging more families to go and pick up the meals, that helps, correct? I mean, obviously it would be small, but.
Yes. I mean, every meal brings in a reimbursement, and that just helps offset the cost of personnel. And the cost of the meal is usually pretty much a wash. As far as
Yeah.
the supplies, it's the staffing that is causing the problem.
Yeah, yeah. Got it. Thank you.
You bet.
Ms. Canoyer.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Atkins. I know how difficult it is to even have some types of assumptions to work on. I trust that you'll keep us informed as all things change and bring everything back to the board so that we can modify, adjust as needed throughout the year. But thank you for your hard work and your team. I know this was not easy to do.
Thank you.
I just want to piggyback off of her. Thank you very much, Mr. Atkins.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are there any questions from the audience? None? Well, if there are no questions and no other comments, at 6:12, the public hearing is adjourned.